Cleaning out your colony's outworld is a simple process of making sure they are in a clean, healthy environment without contamination of old food, possibly spreading throughout the colony, which could lead to the worst case scenarios of a giant mold infestation. What I normally use to clean my outworld is tweezers, a paintbrush, got some paper towels, some kind of a Tupperware container with my Antics glue on the inside to make sure there are no escapes, a squirt bottle, and last but not least, a vacuum. This is the ant vacuum, the ant vacuum. And these things are going to help us to clean up this outworld today. What happens over time is the ants shred into the protein. And it's easy to remove the big parts, but it may be harder for you to remove the smaller particles and the trash and debris that you may only be able to get to by wiping with a paper towel, or in this case, a vacuum. To start out, you want to remove the big items first, and you can place them in your Tupperware container. In some of the larger food items, you may find ants inside of them. Like if I could show you an example real quick. This is a duba roach carcass that has some insides that actually the ants completely dug out, and now it's hollow. If you have particles like this, make sure that you look inside them to make sure you're not throwing away some of your family. Now that we've got the bigger particles out, I like to take a paintbrush and try your best to get everything in the center, away from the edges. If you have sand in your outworld, this may be a little difficult to do, so other methods may be better for that. But if you have an outworld without much in it, you can go ahead and use your paintbrush like a broom and push all of the debris to the center. Once you have a decent looking pile, you can get all of the ants off of your paintbrush. If you have a large colony, there's a good chance a couple grabbed on. You can either take a wet paper towel and pick it up, bring in your trusty vacuum cleaner, and clean it up like so. After you do your little bit of cleanup, you can use your vacuum and pour all of their debris into the Tupperware container. Make sure there are no ants on the inside. One important thing is if you do bring a small vacuum cleaner, always make sure they have the vents. You don't want to use a shop vac for this kind of stuff. Kind of like a small lithium battery vacuum is what I've always used. After that, you want to look around. I do it by hand. I'm comfortable around my ants, but if you're not, you can go ahead and use a cotton ball. After you've done a good job on your outworlds, I would take close attention to the water test tubes, as ants like to put their food in there as well. Now looks like we got a couple girls trying to climb up the fluon. Will they make it? It doesn't look like it, but you never know. Alrighty. Take a close look at all of your colony's water test tubes. In this case, we have 3 of them. You can tell that there are some ants hanging out in this one, but it's relatively clean. From this point, it looks like all of the test tubes are completely clean, so I'm satisfied for the moment. Let's continue on when it comes to cleaning your outworlds and ant nests weekly. Outworlds that have sand in them may be a little bit more complicated when it comes to week-to-week cleaning, but all in all, it's a pretty easy process all the same. Obviously, we're not going to be using a vacuum for these girls, but with your tweezers you can go in and start picking up all the particles. After everything looks good, go ahead and try to mix up the substrate a little bit. This will give them a new perspective on the outworld. It'll create new ways for them to tunnel and build and recreate, and most of all, the substrate won't go, what's the word I'm looking for? Stagnant. There we go. And if you do a little bit of digging, you might actually find what's known as the ant graveyard. Okie dokie. These girls are done. Let's go talk about cleaning feeding trays and items that you continuously use. On a quick side note, we recently talked about honey. When it sits for a while, it becomes sort of like honey quicksand. It hardens, it becomes sticky, and ants have a real hard time getting out of it. You notice here that the ants realized this and started placing sand all throughout it. But regardless, it's always a good idea to remove this stuff 2 to 3 days later, because if you wait too long, it can seriously become an issue for your ants. A cool trick to remember is to completely clean off your feeding trays. You can wipe them down in a sink, and then you can try to use a paper towel or a scrubby to scrub off any of the excess. But something I would recommend doing every now and then is taking a baggie, putting all of your feeding trays in, and dumping some peroxide. This will make sure that any of that leftover food or bacteria that are on them will have a chance to soak and bubble away. If you look close, you can tell that even though I scrubbed them, there are leftover bacteria or fungus that the peroxide is really chewing into at the moment. My final thoughts are that cleaning an outworld should be something you try to do every week. Ants are pretty busy, and they will try to handle any issues they can by themselves, but being ant keepers, it's our responsibility to do the best we can to care for them and give them the easy road that they would never have out in the wild. We feed our ants, we clean up after them, and they really are the definition of an amazing hands-off pet. Well, everybody, thank you for tuning in again. I hope you enjoyed the video and learned something for it in the process. More videos will be coming out soon, and until then, I wish you all a magical night and, of course, happy ant keeping on your side of the neck. See you later.